After years of shortcomings in the playoffs, it looks like the Utah Jazz are finally ready to shake up this core and potentially move away from a lot of these pieces that they have. With that being said, it seems like the Raptors may just be monitoring the situation for potential trades. And that is what we're here to talk about today. What's up, everybody? It is JJ Buckets, and I think I made the idea of today's video pretty clear. Yeah. So before I fully hop into things, just usual, make sure you're leaving a like on the video if you're enjoying the content. It takes like a second and it makes such a big difference for me, so thank you if you're doing it. And if you're new here, subscribe to the channel as well. We are currently, as of me saying this, just doing the math on this. Anyways, math is hard. We're on the way to 1K. Help me get to 1K. Yeah, let's hop into the video. For the most part today, I want to talk about the two big names being Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. Obviously, they are at the forefront of the Jazz, and whether or not the Raptors should be looking out for one of them. At the very least, there have been reports that the Raptors are potentially eyeing Gobert. They are monitoring the situation, so it'll be interesting to see if they take a bite on that, and obviously I'm gonna discuss today whether or not it's worth it. And by extension, I also want to talk about D-Mitch as well. It's somebody that I've personally discussed on this channel for a potential trade target in the past, and then I have one more little caveat in it at the end, so stay tuned. So let's kick things off with Rudy Gobert. Now this is a very interesting name because, like, for my money's worth, Rudy Gobert is a very good NBA player. He gets a lot of flack from fans for having just not the most exciting game to watch. I mean, like, the man is one of the best defensive players in the league, probably top 5, if not top 3. Like, and he gets a lot of flack from fans. I guess I don't like using the term casuals, but he gets a lot of flack from casual NBA fans because, you know, they'll tune into the playoffs and, you know, he will get a lot of situations where it looks like he's the one that's being exposed defensively, which really isn't the case. I know this is something that even I have given him flack for in the past, of, you know, being exposable or being played off the court in the playoffs, but I was a young man then. Well, maybe not young, but looking at the situation more closely, it doesn't really feel like he's actually the one at fault in those situations. The Jazz's perimeter defense is just god-awful, and a lot of the times Rudy Gobert is getting put into these tough situations where he has to potentially, you know, just come up and play help defense or make a big call on whether or not to leave a driving lane open to cover for this horrible perimeter defense, or, you know, sit protecting the rim and, you know, his perimeter guys get exposed. And in those scenarios, obviously, a lot of times both choices are bad one way or another, especially if you're playing a tough matchup where they could take advantage of either one of those kind of situations. Basically, I'm rambling, but my point here being is that Rudy Gobert is a fantastic defensive player, which obviously the Raptors love. The Raptors love their defense. And offensively, like, yeah, he is rough around the edges, to say the least. But at the very worst, I think you can definitely use him as a role man on the Raptors, which you take that. You would absolutely take that considering the defensive impact that he makes. So, with some of that in mind, plus obviously the natural thing that I don't really feel like needs to be said of Gobert's value in terms of guarding potential guys in the Eastern Conference, that you're going to see a lot, you know, in the playoffs if you want a championship in the near future, like a Giannis Antetokounmpo, like a Joel Embiid. Is Rudy Gobert a worthwhile target for the Raptors? It's a tough one. I'm gonna say yes and no, and I'll explain in a second. So on one hand, like, here's my thing with Gobert. If I could take him and just pluck him from the Jazz and throw him in with this Raptors core without really shaking up a major part of the Raptors core, I would say do it, right? Like, he adds a lot of what the Raptors are missing, obviously, especially around the rim in terms of the rim protection there. Like, it would be invaluable. And honestly, I have no doubts that the Raptors would be one of the best defensive teams in the league if you add Gobert to it, because you have a lot of really good perimeter guys, and then you add somebody like Gobert that can help make up for mistakes and protect the rim. It'd be a top 3 defense at absolute worst. But my problem with this situation is just the pieces that you would potentially need to move, I guess, in order to acquire Gobert. Like, a lot of people I've seen throw Fred VanVleet into the trade packages here, and I don't really like that one personally, because, you know, the Raptors shooting isn't that great at times as it is, and you're talking about giving up one of the 2 best shooters on the team. It's And I feel like in any of these situations, like, you don't really love who you would have to give up to get Gobert. Like, if you throw Pascal Siakam into the mix, like, in terms of trade talks, I don't really like that one either, personally. If you're throwing, I don't know, OG Anunoby into that one, it's a little more, I guess, interesting of a talking point. Sorry. I had to hesitate there because, again, I don't really love that one either. Gobert is a fantastic ad, but even for the price of somebody like OG, he's still, I think, scratching the surface of what he can be in the league. And naturally, with OG, the health problems have been concerning. I would be disingenuous if I said they weren't. But if you feel like there's a chance that, you know, this guy will figure it out in terms of his health, OG still has a whole lot of potential. And it is hard envisioning giving up one of the pieces that you have on this team in order to acquire Gobert, when otherwise, you know, Gobert would be a fantastic add to the core, but that's, quite frankly, in my mind, you know, if you had the cap space for it, to just sign him outright and add him to the team, which obviously you do not, and it's not that kind of situation. It's obviously a trade situation. I would actually probably be all for it. But in this situation here of a trade, I just really don't know if it's worth it, in my opinion. You can comment below and disagree. If you have a trade package that you think is fair to both teams, drop it in the comment section. But for me, I just don't know what the package that you work out there is. Donovan Mitchell, I'm going to try to keep things a little more brief just because I already have a whole video talking about Mitchell on this channel, and you can go watch it if you'd like. But for the most part, Donovan Mitchell, what do I like about him? I like his shot creating capability, which is something that I think was still missing in this Raptors run, and you saw it against the Sixers. They had times where the offense would just really stall out and they needed a guy to go get a bucket for them. Donovan Mitchell is an absolute bucket getter. What are the flaws of Donovan Mitchell that would want me to potentially, you know, think on whether or not I'd really want to see him on this team? Well, the obvious one is, in Utah, at least at the moment, he does not look like a very good defender. Which is surprising because he has the athletic gifts, which is actually going to give light of way, whatever, to my next point here, where on one hand, he's been a bad defender in Utah. On the other hand, we've seen situations like this before where, you know, Gary Trent Jr. maybe necessarily wasn't the best defender in the world when, you know, he was on the Portland Trail Blazers. I don't think he was outright awful by any means, but he wasn't really that good. When it came to the Raptors, you saw the healthy improvement from Gary Trent Jr. for Donovan Mitchell. It's also, for Gary Trent Jr. And I think you can see the same for Donovan Mitchell. And it's actually ironic because, you know, if we're talking about a Donovan Mitchell trade, Gary Trent Jr. is in all likelihood a piece that's heading in the other direction in that trade. But yeah, D-Mitch is a name I like. D-Mitch is a name I like because I think the flaws in his game are easily fixable, and again, he adds that extra element for the Raptors in terms of just having a bona fide go-to scorer, both for the regular season, but especially for the playoffs. And if you really think that he gives you that chance to put you over, you know, the hump in that regard, I do think you take it. Again, it's interesting to see what you match up in terms of the trade package for the contracts and whatnot, but Mitchell is a name I like. Mitchell is definitely a name I like at the right price. Let me say that. At the right price, where if you're not really gutting your core to get Donovan Mitchell, and you can hold on to the pieces that really make this team, you know, potentially special moving forward, I think you go get Donovan Mitchell, and I wouldn't really hesitate that much about it. He does have some tendencies of being a shot chucker at times, and like his shot selection can be poor, again, in that regard, but these are things, once again, I think they're fixable. I think they're very fixable, and I think Nick Nurse is a fantastic coach that can devote whatever amount of time, obviously him alongside some of the assistant coaches on this team, they can get that sorted out. They can get the defense sorted out, and just the major pluses of Donovan's game are probably something that you would really enjoy envisioning with this Toronto Raptors team. Now, naturally, a lot of the talking points here and in general have been about the stars. And I get that. It's fun envisioning, you know, these stars, these great players on your team. But if we're talking trades from the Utah Jazz, and if they're really going to blow it up, why not take a look at Royce O'Neal, right? It's something I mentioned in the last video that I posted on this channel in terms of needs. Shooting is a need for this team. And a lot of people were happy to mention, it's like, yeah, it's like you want to get that shooting, but you also want that shooting to be good on the other end, good defensively. Obviously, especially for a team like the Raptors, so shout out to all of you in the comment section last time that said that, because in this regard, Royce O'Neal fits the bill for that, right? Like, Royce O'Neal can be a very quality bench player for this team, and obviously, unlike somebody like a Donovan Mitchell or a Rudy Gobert, you're not really going to be paying a massive amount for that guy. So if there's an opportunity to get Royce O'Neal, I think he's a fantastic kind of, what's the expression I'm looking for? Compensation? Not compensation, but he's a fantastic piece to get if you can't get one of these two guys at a good value. He's a fantastic settlement. I don't know. I'm really missing the word right now, but I think you folks know what I mean. So Royce O'Neal is a guy that I would definitely really take a good long look at in terms of players that can be added to this bench that can be healthy contributors for the Raptors and really get some fun, good lineups out of it when you're getting the bench unit in there. Yeah, that really more or less does it for me. Comment below, let me know what you think about, you know, these three players, or potentially really anybody else from the Utah Jazz that you would want to see the Raptors pursue. And besides for that, usual drill, folks, like the video, like I said at the beginning of it, it does not take a lot of time, and it makes a huge difference for me. So again, thank you. If you're doing it, it takes like a second. And yeah, if you're new here and you enjoyed the video that you watched today, subscribe to the channel. Again, it's the off season. This is always such a fun time for content. I will be bringing it. Yeah, it's been JJ Buckets. It's been a good time. I think so, at least. And I will see everybody on the next one.